Our first emergency shelter is going to be the A-frame, or otherwise known as the debris hut. The reason that it's imperative to know this shelter is that should you not have the means or the skill to get a fire going, this shelter could literally keep you warm enough and save your life without a fire, which in sub-freezing temperatures is actually really hard to do with just a shelter. The advantage to building this shelter is not only is it small and easy to build, it requires no tools and it has a very small opening. Improvising a way to make a door for this shelter is just going to make it that much more effective. With any shelter that you build, it's always going to be more effective if you can cut off the outside draft from entering your shelter. You could very easily make a door for this shelter by using a clothing garment or by using the natural materials at hand. Before building your shelter, always look up. Make sure that there are no dead overhanging branches or anything that could fall down on top of you. Likewise, make sure you disturb the ground. You don't want to build your shelter on top of an ant's nest or something similar. Let's get started on our A-frame. You'll need to find 2 wire branches roughly half the length of your body. These will lock in together, forming our doorway or opening. The bottom of your shelter opening needs to be wider than your shoulders. Next you will need a ridgepole, which forms the backbone to your shelter. This needs to be longer than you are tall and strong. Place your ridgepole on top of where your Y-sticks join in together. This forms a tripod structure, which provides the main support for your shelter. Slightly elevating the back end of your ridgepole with a log or rock will maximize the full length of your shelter, providing adequate room for your feet. Before we build a roof on our shelter, we're going to put a bed inside. It is extremely important to keep your body insulated from the ground. Your body warmth will never warm up the ground. The ground will just keep sucking your body heat from you until you get cold. Aim to keep yourself at least 3 inches off the ground. The amount of insulation you're going to need to do this depends completely on the specific materials you have at hand. Once you have finished with your bed, it's time to start adding on all the ribs to your structure. These can be any thickness and live or dead wood, provided that they are strong enough. Alternate the stick placement from one side to the next, making sure that you keep them as close together as possible. These ribs are creating the angle of your roof. Remember, you want to create at least a 45-degree angle to shed water. Don't get obsessed with using perfect sticks. The whole idea is to create the function and not the aesthetical aspect. You'll notice that all the ribs leaning up against the ridgepole do not exceed the height of the ridgepole by more than a couple inches. This is ideal, as when you add your insulation, you do not want any of your ribs to be sticking out. You want them to be completely covered with the insulation, not allowing any passage for water to travel down into your shelter. Just like a jigsaw puzzle, I'm now filling up any gaps with some cross hatching. You can run pieces vertically, horizontally, diagonally, as long as you fill in the gaps. Now it's time for insulation. In this example, I'm using dead pine needles. They don't have the largest surface area and therefore not the best at insulating. However, they are easy to gather. Just like shingling a roof, always add from the bottom, working your way up. Make sure each bunch you add overlaps the other, and this will help in shedding water. There's always going to be a little bit of guesswork involved as to how much insulation you need. But remember, it depends on how much rain you expect and how cold the temperatures are going to get. When in doubt, add more insulation. For cold temperatures, I wouldn't go anything less than 1 foot in thickness of insulation, and pay attention to the top of your shelter. That's where it's going to count should you get rain. It's very important that you do an inspection from the inside of your shelter. Looking up at the roof, you should never see any light penetrating. If light penetrates, then so will water and snow. To keep all our insulation in place and add to the waterproofing, you can add more logs on top of your shelter or use something like tree bark. This is highly effective as it's got a large surface area. Add them on just like you would tiles on a roof, from the bottom, shingling it all the way to the top. It's important for me to mention that any grass or leaves can be used as shelter insulation. You can use things such as palm leaves, which are very effective in tropical regions, all the way through to pine needles in forests. You of course are going to be limited to whatever is in your area and will always need to improvise. Finish off by placing pine bark on top of your ridgepole. This will make a huge difference in stopping water from getting into your shelter. The shelter is now finished and can be used as is, or in very cold temperatures you can fill the entire inside of your shelter with insulation such as pine needles. This would be very uncomfortable and definitely claustrophobic, however, it could potentially save you from hypothermia. A better alternative is to use a jacket, bark, or any other natural materials at hand to build a door. This will trap all of the heat inside the shelter and be way more efficient.